Hi, I'm Jenn Drummond. Welcome to Seek Your Summit. As a mom, a business owner, and the first female to climb the 7-second summits, I realize that the mountains we climb are a part of our success. And it is up to us to go beyond that success into a life of significance. All right. Welcome to Seek Your Summit. Today is the last in the series of the Breakproof book, 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals. I am getting into chapter 5, which is known as the messy middle. I think I saved this chapter for last because I'm in the messy middle right now with this podcast and shifting to in-person interviews only because I love the energy and I don't like Zoom. It puts a wall up between the guests and I wanted to get rid of that wall. So we're still interviewing great people. If you have anybody that you recommend, make sure you send them our way. But today we're getting into the messy middle. You all know what the messy middle is. It's when that initial excitement of whatever you said you're going to do has worn off. You've taken some steps into the pursuit, so the pursuit has started, yet the end is nowhere in sight. And you just really have a hard time figuring out, like, is it worth it? Am I getting anywhere? Why am I doing this? The doubt monster steps in. So the funny thing is that my first mountain, Ojos del Salado in South America, located in the Atacama Desert of Chile, was where I really felt the messy middle. I was climbing a volcano. And if you have not climbed a volcano before, I'm just letting you know they're not my favorite. They're kind of boring. They're this huge mountain or volcano in the middle of nowhere. So the scenery around you typically isn't anything that great because you're on the thing that is the cool thing in the area that you're in. So volcanoes, you can be climbing for 3 or 4 hours and you really can't tell you have any progress being made except if you look down and see the steps behind you. So if you're building a business and you're all excited, you have the sign on the door, you're ready to take clients, and the clients aren't coming in as easy, or the widget isn't selling as fast, or you have a bunch of teenagers at home, and so you're in the messy middle of raising children. It's a thing. It's a stage. I promise you, it's part of all of our pursuits, and you're going to be fine. One of the best things to do with the messy middle is, number 1, anticipate it. Like, know that things are going to get messy at some point in your journey. For me, I like to try to plan ahead as much as possible and build a buffer for when that messy middle happens. It's almost never the thing that I anticipate that tries to knock me off my game or set me back, but it's the cushion that I've put aside for what I thought was going to happen that actually gets reallocated to what actually happens and saves me and allows me to continue on my pursuit. So when you anticipate there's going to be a messy middle and you have some resources set aside to handle it when it comes, I'm telling you, you're going to be thankful that you listen to this podcast and you have that cushion. When you get into the messy middle, a key point, and I've said this other times in other episodes, is to pause and assess the situation. Kind of like if you step into a creek and you shift up all the mud and all of a sudden it's really, really muddy. You do not need to take a few more steps and just make it more muddy because then it's going to be longer until that water clears and you can see the next step. So when you're in the messy middle, the first thing to do is just pause for a second. Evaluate where you are. Try not to add to the mess and figure out what you can do to reestablish your ground and continue going forward. I find it very helpful to maintain perspective. So when I'm in this section of whatever I'm doing, I need to remind myself not how far I have to go, because a lot of times we don't even know where that is, but I remind myself of how far I've come. So I think it really helps to look back, to gain momentum, to go forward. So making sure that you're just maintaining perspective. You're keeping things in line. Like, oh, this is the messy middle. I knew this was coming. It won't last forever. It's a stage of every goal. I am okay. Sometimes in the messy middle, you need to adjust expectations. You need to say, okay, This took longer than I expected. We are not going to be able to launch this product next month like we had hoped. Can we delay the launch a couple months, regroup, have more energy, have more success, and be ready to go? There's always things you can do that allow you to do your pursuit, but maybe look a little bit different. I know on some of my climbs, I had to climb down. It wasn't a one and done. It was a climb down, regroup, train for another year, and come back. It was still a success when it was all done. It just wasn't a success as fast as I had hoped. So when you're in the messy middle, see if there's any expectations that you can adjust that gives your team a little bit more bandwidth to bring the thing to where you desire it to go. It's important to identify aspects that you can control. What's working? What isn't working? What can you influence? What is entirely out of your influence? And where can you go from there? I remember when COVID happened and everything was crazy. The news was feeding it even worse. And I just remember thinking, this isn't helping. So I gave myself permission to shut off the news and only listen to it for 30 minutes a day. If the world was going to end, it was going to end. And me listening to 8 hours of somebody telling me it was going to end wasn't going to change anything. So look at what you're being fed from different sources, what you're reading, what you're consuming, what's going on in your world. And if it's not helping you and it feels like it's adding to the mess, see if you can give yourself permission anywhere to cut some of that out or limit it and just allow you to live from inside here instead of outside there. The messy middle is another time where you want to lean into your support system. Last chapter, we talked about building support and some key characters to have on your team that will help you. It's also important to assess the situation and be like, what can I do in this circumstance to support the people around me and to support my team and to support my mission? Are there things that I can see this circumstance needs that I'm able to provide, and I'm currently not doing that? But anything that you're doing, having other people's perspectives or other people's angles really helps you stay in tune with what's real and what's emotional and not making that mess any bigger than it currently is. Staying positive is really helpful when you're in the messy middle. And sometimes you just need to stop for a second. When things got really overwhelming for me on the mountain and I felt like my self-talk was just going downhill, I would stop and I would look and I'd have to identify 5 things that I liked or that I was grateful for or that were doing well. And a lot of times it'd be, I am so grateful the sun is out. I am so grateful my outfit has pink on it because it's my favorite color. I am so grateful that my kids are being taken care of by grandma. I am so grateful that it's not snowing sideways right now. I don't know what it is in your world, but making sure that you have the ability to stay in a positive mindset is going to make that messy middle a lot easier to navigate. Setting micro goals is another thing that can help. I remember running a half marathon and I thought I was doing well, and then all of a sudden I hit a wall. And that wall was telling me that I should stop and quit and turn around and just be done and pretend that my ankle hurt. And I was like, I can't pretend my ankle hurt. And then I'm like, now I'm going to manifest that my ankle's going to hurt. We're going to have real problems. And so what I started to do is I started to say, okay, I'm going to run to that stop sign. I'm going to run to that porta potty. I'm going to run to that house. I'm going to run to the next house. I'm going to run to that car. When you start setting micro goals, you start taking yourself out of this big picture that feels overwhelming. You start focusing on something micro and easy that you can manage. And then you start building momentum. And that momentum gets you out of the thought pattern of beating yourself up and into a thought pattern of solving problems and getting to the end. So if you're in that messy middle and you really can't find any groundwork to stronghold, stop and figure out what micro goal you can set for yourself to get to the next spot. I even did it where I would do a 10-second inhale and a 10-second exhale. And by giving myself that time, it's like, okay, I did that once. Now I'm going to do it twice. Now I'm going to do it 3 times. I'm building micro goals in my mind with my breath and allowing myself to get my footing, control the situation, things not feeling so out of control and messy. Curiosity is a big piece of the messy middle. When we allow ourselves to look at this as not right, not wrong, but different, then we have the space to get curious. Why is this happening? What am I contributing to? What am I learning? What can I do differently next time? Curiosity really is something that allows us to continue in the messy middle and not judge it, not be mad at it, not try to fix it or change it. Just observe it, honor it, and see what you can learn to continue to climb your climb. And believe me, I know this next one is hard at times, but if you can find humor in your pursuit, if you can add humor to your pursuit, that messy middle is going to be so much easier to navigate. And I promise you, someday you're going to look back on it and laugh, because it's the messy moments that we truly remember. I was just on spring break with all of my kids. We brought a friend with us. It's a golf cart community, so the kids were driving golf carts everywhere. Of course, the friend of ours that comes with us is driving the golf cart at night with the boys on it. He gets into the rain gutter, which happens to be extremely deep, and wrecks the back end of the golf cart so it won't turn, and drives straight into the St. Regis sign and knocks off all the stone. So the golf cart's scratched, it won't run anymore, and the sign to the St. Regis Hotel is destroyed because of my crew. Okay, in the moment, I was like, what? How does this even happen? What is this gonna cost? How do we fix like all the things, right? And then I just allowed myself to laugh. I mean, you know what? In 5 years, we're gonna look at this situation and be like, do you remember when we were the family that crashed the St. Regis sign on spring break? And it's going to be funny. We're going to remember this moment. And it just allowed me to breathe a little bit, to relax a little bit, and realize at the end of the day, this isn't a huge thing. And it's actually kind of funny. No one's hurt. Everybody's okay. It will all be fixed. So in your pursuits, if you can find a way to just chill out a little bit, have a little bit more fun, that messy middle is going to be a different experience for you. When I'm in the messy middle, I have a tendency of wanting to just add, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I'm putting a million things at it and trying to fix it. And I'm making more of a mess. Sometimes we just need to stop and ask ourselves, where can we simplify? Where can we slow down? Where can we make this mess not get bigger? This can happen to me during the day, right? I'm working during the day. The kids come home from after school. Somebody has a report that they didn't plan, or they have a soccer thing tomorrow and we can't find the uniform, and you know the drill. It happens. And so my next thing I'm supposed to be doing is making dinner and driving here and doing that. Well, I'll stop for a second and I'll look at what the rest of the day has, and I'll ask myself, what can I do to not make this more of a mess? Maybe we eat pizza tonight. Maybe we eat takeout. Maybe Junior misses one soccer practice so that we can be a normal family operating under normal, healthy mental conditions, right? These other things are extra. So if you're in the messy middle and things seem to be getting messier, just stop and say, where can I simplify? What can I do that would make my life easier and those around me easier? Teaching people around you that their mental health is more important than anything that you're trying to achieve right now is a really strong lesson and good one for all of us to take home. Okay, the messy middle, we're still in it, right? We're in it, and we're trying to figure out how to navigate it. Sometimes we need to look outside of it and find something that gets us excited again. When I was in really hard sections on the mountain, and I had tough moves in front of me, it was hard for me to make that next move because it was vulnerable and exposed and scary and all the emotions that I try to avoid. So I would stop. I would take a look at the environment and be just in awe of how beautiful this mountain was and how many people were here with that same goal of climbing it and why they were here for their different reasons and their different stories and their different everything. Yet we were all the same, because we were all on this pursuit together. And I think when we allow ourselves to get inspired by the thing that we're trying to solve, the widget that we're trying to build, the mountain that we're trying to climb, just allows us to appreciate that mess a little bit more and understand that it's part of the journey. And you know, I'm a huge fan of documenting. When I'm in the messy middle, I force myself to journal and take notes of the story and figure out what's going on. And I have to laugh at myself because things that I thought were a mess later on weren't a mess. In fact, they were something that allowed us to go a different direction, which allowed us to be successful in ways that I never thought possible. So if you document what's going on and get away from it, maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year later, and look back at it and be like, that wasn't a mess. That was actually a blessing in disguise. It felt like a mess because it wasn't what I expected, or it came at me faster than I thought I could handle it. But truly, it was a gift. A lot of times, the gifts in our lives are disguised in the messes in our lives. So if you can train yourself to document these processes, when you look back and you're in a mess again, you can remind yourself like, oh, wait, I was here before, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It actually ended up being very beneficial for me. So if you can do that, when messes come up, it gives you more ease when they show up because you've been there before, you've navigated them before, and they don't become so overwhelming. So yes, the messy middle is messy, and it's in the middle because you haven't quite finished yet. But I promise you, if you give yourself the time and space to get creative, experience the experience, and continue forward, you will get to the top of your mountain. And that is the end of the Breakproof book series. It's been so fun sharing this book with you in a different way and in a different format. I am grateful for my experiences, and I hope me sharing them with you has helped you navigate yours. Next week, we start interviews again, and I'm so excited about the guests that we have lined up. So be sure to subscribe, like, and we'll see you next week.